You want to come off mute and tell me when you go live? I'm not seeing it yet. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the provider and the beads provider and case management webinar. We are happy to have you with us today and sharing what is probably your lunchtime with us. So thank you for joining us. I am Holly Wimsatt. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Disability Services. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about how to use live captions. So to turn on live captions and subtitles, select Captions Subtitles On in your video controls. To change the caption language, select Settings, and then Caption/Subtitles, and choose the language that you prefer. To ask a question, select the Q&A on the right side of your screen. Type your question in the compose box and then select Send. It's important to note that your questions will only be visible to the presenters, and we will address questions as time permits. And just know we are also looking at ways to, to ensure that we're getting responses to those questions to you when time doesn't permit for us to go through them during the session itself. So next slide. Our agenda for today is, I just did an introduction, but we have some guest speakers today that we're really excited to share this time with them so that they can provide some information to you. The first is an innovation pilot project with Southern Indiana Resource Solutions. You may recall the innovation pilot projects are grants that we made available to entities through funding available through American Rescue Plan Act funds. So Amanda Vanduweg is going to present for Southern Indiana Resource Solutions here in a moment. We are having some technical issues with our second presenter, Dr. Spencer Booth from Booth & Company. He is scheduled to present about his innovation pilot project. Again, we're having some technical difficulties, so we may or may not be able to make that happen today. And then after that, we'll have some provider updates for all HCBS waiver providers and beads. Some provider updates specifically for the health and wellness and TBI waiver providers and case managers, and then provider updates for the CIH FSW waiver providers and case managers. And then we'll, time allowing, we'll open up our invitation for future webinar topics as well. So now I am going to turn it over to Amanda. And again, she is our guest speaker from Southern Indiana Resource Solutions, and she is going to be presenting on their innovation pilot project around young adult solutions. Amanda, thanks for joining us, and I'll turn it to you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name, again, is Amanda Vanduweg. I'm the Director of Employment Services, and I also have with me...
I'm Claire Meyer. I'm Outreach and Development Coordinator here at SERS.
We would like to just give a background on our IPP grant. SERS is a nonprofit organization serving individuals with disabilities in a 5-county region in southwestern Indiana for over 55 years. The SERS mission is we build relationships to support individuals with disabilities on their journey toward independence. SERS is using their IPP grant to develop and pilot the Young Adult Solutions, YAS, project to motivate and support young adults to increase their independence. What is Young Adult Solutions? Through Young Adult Solutions, young adults with disabilities and family supports should be equipped with the knowledge, tools, and local community networks to effectively plan their post-high school life trajectory and pursue goals specific to education, career, and enrichment. Key stakeholder partners in this project are local school corporations, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and the community college. Our initial logic model has been vital for measuring our impact, implementation, and evaluation. For our inputs, we identified what we already know, what has been working for others, partnerships, and key stakeholders. A strong focus on understanding the needs of transitioning youth and their families has led to review of various referral documents and resources and gathering input informally from a variety of partners. This information gathering and organizing resulted in 3 categories of support, labeled as trailheads with pathways for exploring and accessing resources for that particular goal. Therefore, for outputs, we created resource guides, hosted transition fairs, developed pathways and networks for meaningful lives and integrated supports. Our outcomes activity consists of transition fairs, orientation sessions modeled from Charting the Life course principles, and integration of various state agency tools and community resources for less reliance on paid supports, smaller gaps in services, and greater independence.
We can move on to the, thank you. Our project was designed specifically through the lens of sustainability for implementation using duplicatable framework components and a variety of resources available throughout the state. We focused on motivating and educating young adults and their families to support so they would be better equipped for transitioning from academic resources and supports that have been the primary source of stability and quality of care. The goal was to foster connections within their community that could provide innovative and integrated supports to create a meaningful life and determine next steps. We created tools that would empower young adults to build supportive relationships. The YAS initiative has positively impacted our local Warwick County community through successful transition fairs. Through piloting 3 fairs, we have not only strengthened the school and community network, over 60 families now have personal connections to resources in their community to support the transition from the educational system. And we actually have a quote we'd like to share from one of the moms of one of the students who came to one of our transition fairs. She said, "I can't express enough thanks for this program. My daughter and I have gained so much knowledge, resources, and tools that I know we will take advantage of."
One critical component for this project's sustainability has been the nurturing of strong partnerships through the formation of an advisory committee that works together for all aspects of the project. This has brought a wide range of perspectives and expertise for the vetting and organizing of materials and curriculum development, and has fostered opportunities for hosting transition fairs and strengthening referral pathways. The advisory committee defined and facilitated a more collaborative approach to the shared goal of transitioning young adults from an academic support system to an integrated community-based organization system. Our pilot demonstrates the impact of strengthening and sustaining this important relationship, bridging the gap in services and fostering less reliance on government-funded services. Through the course of our project, we have learned some key strategies for engaging with young adults and their families. Connections and partnerships are critical, especially with the school district, for transition-related projects. We have found that the participation of young adults is a collaborative effort among their supporters, and there is already an established connection to their school districts for increased access and engagement with families. This pipeline is essential for greater outreach and communication.
Our YAS initiative is sustainable through 4 key components. First, key stakeholder committee meetings to strengthen and align school and community partnerships. Then educational orientation courses and transition fair activities. Transition planning tools that model person-centered case management best practices. And lastly, sustainability through online trailhead maps with national and regional resources targeting the 3 main pathways of career, education, and enrichment. The project focused on organizing all of the available tools and resources in such a way that creates an action path for young adults. This has the potential to increase their independence as they learn to identify and navigate community resources on their own. By creating pathways to access existing community resources, it is hoped that the reliance on paid supports will be decreased. Here is just a sample and snapshot of one of our trailheads that provides linked resources for each action step of the path. And here is a snapshot of a sample from our online resource hub that is hoped to support independence through goal planning and curriculum resources.
In summary, the YAS project and materials were intentionally built so that they could be recreated across the state. It provides a framework for partnering with local schools, VR offices, and other key partners. The curriculum is developed based on statewide assessments and materials, as well as broadly applicable best practice models. Materials developed include a manual for the program's scope and sequence for duplication. SERS plans to incorporate this model into their existing service delivery and feels it could be a model that is available to waiver participants as part of their case management and available service supports. It will be important to ensure this model does not duplicate other existing services and that understanding of if and how it can be incorporated into educational services is also explored, as schools are the primarily responsible for transition services, but most parents don't feel they are experiencing good transition planning. Though it could be part of a service model, the curriculum and materials are designed to help young adults develop their own plan. It can be used by people and families without services to help identify a path forward and connect with resources to take next steps. It may be worthwhile to explore if and how community-based organizations can utilize this curriculum in their support of young adults and their families. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for joining us today and providing that overview of your project. It's very exciting. Unfortunately, we are not able, because of technical issues, to have our second presenter, Dr. Spencer Booth, on with us today. So apologies for that. Technology, as I think we can all agree, is wonderful when it works, and when it doesn't, it can be a bit of a showstopper. So apologies to Dr. Booth and to our audience for not being able to make that happen today, but we'll go back and work with our partners in IoT and see what we can figure out for next month. Now there is on your screen some additional IPP project updates. That includes our webpage that is all about innovation pilot projects. We encourage you to take a look at that. There's some very exciting work happening, and a lot of this work will inform our waiver reset as we are looking at our home and community-based services Medicaid waiver array. You can also see information on the innovation pilot projects on our BEADS Facebook page. If you're not signed up for our DDRS updates, you can sign up for those as well. And of course, if you have questions or thoughts, you're welcome to reach out to us via the BEADS Help email address. All right, I'm going to move into provider updates. We have some updates that impact all providers and case managers, case and care managers. I want to talk a little bit about provider environmental requirements. So it is the policy of BEADS that a provider shall maintain a safe and secure living environment for individuals within its services. So this is important, obviously. So providers designated in an individual's service plan must ensure that an individual's physical environment includes modifications and adaptations in compliance with the person's PCISP and BEADS policy. An individual's living areas must also meet Indiana code and local building ordinances for single family dwellings or multiple family dwellings as appropriate. And then providers must maintain specific written safety and security policies and procedures for an individual in both the provider's office and the individual's home to ensure that all staff are trained on the policy. We also have a link attached here about environmental requirements, and that link includes provider responsibilities related to the environment and also biohazard and safety concerns. So BEADS providers are required to have policies around biohazards, but certainly everything that you Need to know about BEAD's environmental requirements for BEAD's providers is available in that policy with the link we provided. We also have some provider updates for the health and wellness and TBI providers. And these really focus around provider enrollment and provider profile changes. So, because as you know, as a provider, this is a little different than it was when we were operating, or when Division of Aging was operating the Agent Disabled Waiver. So, for active providers of the health and wellness and traumatic brain injury waiver, if you are one of these providers of services and you need to update your provider profile, that might be because you're adding services, you're adding counties, maybe you're changing a physical address. Any of those things make it necessary to complete an updated certification with OMPP, or the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. Once this is, and there's a link in the slides, and of course the slides will be made available to you. Once this is completed, you will need to update your Medicaid certification. And then once that has been updated and approved, BEADS will be notified and we will update your provider record in CAMS. So I see a question, what is a PCISP? Thank you for bringing that up. That is a person-centered individualized support plan. So thank you for calling that out. We will try to do better with our acronyms. So if you're a provider for the health and wellness and TBI waivers or TBI waivers, and you have a change to your provider profile and then you update your Medicaid certification, BEADS is then automatically notified of the changes by the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning, and Indiana Medicaid will update your information once all required information is obtained. It is not necessary for you to reach out to BEADS to do this process or to complete this process, because again, we're automatically notified by our partners over in the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. So once you're finished with that process with the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning, they will let us know and we'll make the applicable changes in CAMS. For active providers on the health and wellness and TBI waivers who need to change your contact information or other demographics, you again will need to update your Medicaid certification. When this happens and has been approved, BEADS will again be notified by our partners and we will update your provider record in CAMS. Again, it's not necessary for you to contact us to initiate those changes. We will be automatically notified when that's all done through the Medicaid system, and we'll update CAMS accordingly. I see a quick question about a place to sign in for the webinar. You are not required to sign in, but thank you for asking that question. All right, a few updates for providers of the community integration and habilitation and the family support waiver. We just have a couple here. So updates, or just wanted to have some discussion around the requirements of the person-centered individualized support plan, or PCISP. We have had some questions arise about the PCISP and its accessibility to staff working in an individual's home. So wanted to clarify a couple points here. It is the responsibility of the residential provider to ensure that an individual's person-centered individualized support plan is in the individual's home, or for non-residential providers, the primary location where the individual receives services. So that is very, very important that PCISP is available to staff as they're working with the individuals. So we have found that this is not always the case. We also ask case managers to verify that those PCISPs and the current ones are in the homes as required. The PCISP must meet the documentation requirements that are set forth in 460 IEC 6-17-3 and 460 IEC 6-17-4 and be available to staff working with the individual. As we think about the PCISP, or Person-Centered Individualized Support Plan, being that living document that informs the people that are supporting an individual on how they want and need to be supported to live their best life, it's imperative that those PCISPs be available to staff so that they can reference those as they're with the individuals. Okay, we have a slide here on the incident reporting. So we have seen an increase in incident reports that have been filled out but not submitted. So as a reminder, after all information for the initial incident report has been entered, a PDF of the individual's report will display on a grid. You must then click Submit to finalize the report. So until the person completing the incident report clicks Submit, it is not submitted to the state. So we wanted to give a reminder, you will see the PDF, but you still need to submit to the state in order for us to receive that incident report. I want to talk a little bit about Person-Centered Individualized Support Plan agreements. So the BEADS signature page is a single document that can be used to capture agreement and acknowledge choice. Every time a PCISP is created or updated, the BEADS signature page should include the signatures of the individualized support team members responsible for implementing the finalized PCISP. When using the signature page for this purpose, the meeting date of the annual planning meeting, the effective date of the PCISP, and the PCISP serial number must be included. And then the signature pages must be uploaded within 30 calendar days following the team meeting where changes were made. It's important to note that when a PCISP or service plan is updated to include more than minor changes, a new signature page is required. Okay, we have another reminder here, but we also have seen some situations recently where this has not been the case, so that is why we are including this reminder. Per 460 IEC 6-15-2, a provider shall maintain in the provider's office for each employee or agent a limited criminal history that meets the requirements of 460 IEC 6-10-5, with the information updated at least every 3 years. So, again, a provider must keep those criminal history or background checks on file for staff that are working with individuals. And I would encourage you to reference 460 on that. We have received a number of instances where criminal background checks are not available on staff, and that is problematic for a number of reasons. We need to be making sure as providers that those background checks are completed in a timely manner and that they are kept on file. Okay. Lastly, we do want to ask for your feedback on future webinar topics, and you will see on your screen that there is an email address that you can send ideas to. You are also welcome to put them in the chat. We want to make sure these webinars are useful for you. Yes, they are a way for us to communicate, but I recognize that we need to hear from you what you need more information on. So again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and give us some ideas. We want to cover those topics that are that will add value to your work. So I am now going to stop talking for a minute and take a moment to look at some of the questions that have been submitted to see if there are some here that we can answer on the spot. All right. Richard, I'm seeing a couple questions for providers, but
Holly,
okay,
I could give you a couple of questions here. I can help.
Okay, that's great. I did find
here.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I did find one I want to respond to real quickly.
Okay.
There is a question. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. There is a question, when can we expect verbiage to be switched from age and disabled to health and wellness and CAMS? So that is a great question. And I want to address that. So you likely will not see a change in that verbiage for a while yet. There is, it's kind of an involved process, believe it or not, to change that verbiage. So what we have done is look at changing the verbiage on the documents that are produced from CAMS as opposed to changing it in the actual software. So, you know, I would not expect for you to see changes in actual CAMS, the system, and I apologize for that to care managers. I know that can be somewhat confusing, but we are, you know, weighing on the best way to address that. But again, we are, you should see on the written documents produced from CAMS that difference in verbiage. Okay, I'm sorry, Heather. I didn't mean to talk over you. I just saw that and wanted to address it quickly.
No, that's one of the ones I was going to highlight for you.
Okay.
There is some questions around when they can expect the 2% annual rate increase. That was part of the rate review. So I thought you might want to address that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we do not have a date for that additional increase. So just stay tuned. But right now we do not have a date that increase would be put in place. I see a question, how are BEAD's signature pages supposed to be signed within 30 days of meeting if the team only meets quarterly? So I'm not sure I fully understand that question, but I will say if the team meets, then within 30 days of that meeting, the signature pages should be included in the person's electronic file. So if that means the case manager, if it was, let's say, a meeting that was virtual for some reason, just keeping in mind the requirements for face-to-face versus virtual, the expectation would be that the case manager would get that signature page out to people, the appropriate parties to sign. There's an additional question for the Person-centered support plans, if we're having difficulty getting all of the signatures, should we upload what we have by the 30-day deadline or wait? I would upload what you have and ensure, I'm assuming this is from a case manager. I would upload what you have and be sure to document that your efforts at trying to get the additional signatures.
So there's a couple of questions around the IPP presentation that maybe Amanda wouldn't mind just answering. I think there's some interest in how they could access that resource and where that might be available to them. Is there a plan to have that available to providers statewide?
Currently, we do have some of the resources up on our organization's website, CSRS.org, but we do have plans probably more towards February to put all of the resources up, and accessible on our website at least, and then whatever, resources are available through the state as well.
Wonderful, thank you. I will put that link in the announcements as well for participants.
Are there more questions for Amanda, or is that it, Heather?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for the silence. We're just looking at the questions. Okay, there is a question about the maintaining a safe and secure living environment in accordance with Indiana code. So I do want to talk a little bit about that. So this is for BEADS providers. In the slide, we reference 460, and then there is also Indiana code with regard to housing, right? I think an important thing, and I'm sure I am saying something that we all agree to, is, as we're supporting individuals in their homes, recognizing that some of these are family homes, right? But for those settings that are provider owned or controlled in particular, we want those homes should look like we would want our own to look, right? So, for example, if there's a hole in the wall at a house, right, what is being done to fix that? And how long is it taking to get that fixed? I would venture to say that most of us, if we have a hole in our wall, we're going to want that repaired pretty quickly, right? It's the same for the people we support. If it's a family home and there's resource issues, then, that's where we really pull together as a team and help connect that family to community resources that might be able to support home repairs, things like that. I know case managers can be, and care managers can get really creative about identifying resources to support some of the individuals and families that have needs that are outside of what waiver services can provide. So again, I would just challenge everyone, when you go into a home where an individual is being supported, is that home in the same condition you would want your home in, or your family member's home? And if the answer to that is no, then the next question is, okay, what do we need to do as a team to to support this individual and family through, you know, home repairs, or whatever the case may be.
Holly, there's a question around CIH eligibility, which just may be a good time to talk about some of the plans moving forward and looking at how looking at service deliveries across the waivers.
Okay, I'm looking for that question. So, Heather, I don't see the question, so I'm gonna start talking, and then if I'm missing the mark of what the question was, just jump in, okay? And a big shout out to Richard for running our slides today, and for Heather helping us sort through the questions. So, the community integration habilitation waiver is a needs-based waiver, right? So individuals, aside from having Medicaid or being Medicaid eligible and meeting ICFID level of care, individuals must meet very specific criteria to be able to access the CIH waiver. An example of that, and I think one of the questions around that is a caregiver, a primary caregiver over 80 years of age. So if an individual is living, let's just, as an example, if Mark is, let's say he's in his 50s, he lives with his father, Jim, who turns 81, for example, or 80, then they, with potentially support from their case manager or care manager or provider or whomever, if they're in services already, can apply for the community integration habilitation waiver under that category of the caregiver being over 80. There is some question, I see the question now, asking about, is there a way to have a discussion or place to submit a request that this be reviewed or be lowered? So those criteria, the caregiver over 80, again, there's others. There's an individual aging out of a residential placement with the Department of Child Services. There's a death of primary caregiver. There's health and safety risks as determined by the division director. So there are a number of different categories under which a person might qualify for the community integration habilitation waiver. Those are in the waivers, as well as, and those waivers go out for public comment. So if there is comment about what those categories look like, we would ask that people, respond during public comment. We have waiver amendments and renewals that are coming up in 2025. So there will be ample opportunity to offer public comment about those categories. So certainly would invite that in that way. Does that answer the question, Heather?
Yes, that was perfect.
Okay. All right.
So Holly, there are a couple of questions around the environmental requirements that I think maybe we could expand on a little bit. And so those questions, there's a couple of them, so I'm going to try to summarize just so we can address all of them at the same time. But more around, what if the provider doesn't own the home? How are they to proceed if an individual chooses to live in a home that doesn't necessarily meet the Indiana Code and local building ordinances? Kind of what is the provider's role in those types of situations?
Thanks, Heather. Those are good questions. So, I think, Heather, tell me the first one again. I'm sorry. I caught the second, but the first one I was.
Yeah, if if the provider does not own the home.
Oh, thank you,
if they
thank
are
you,
not
thank
the
you.
landlord.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So if the provider doesn't own the home, right, and the person is and I would venture to say that's pretty common, and the person is renting, then we would expect that the team, the individual's team, work with the landlord to get those repairs made, right? You know, again, it's about addressing it, right, and making those efforts to address those problems. Certainly, if there is a provider in place and there's environmental issues, we would want that provider, case manager, care manager, the individual's team to really support efforts to reach out to that landlord and get some sort of remedy there. The other question about if the person chooses to reside in a setting that doesn't meet Indiana code, for example, you know, again, individuals have choices, certainly. What I think is important is if the person is choosing to live someplace that is not safe. So let's just say, as an example, the individual is living in a setting that they are renting, and I don't know. This is going to be an extreme. The water is turned off, right? And the individual says, "It's okay," and it's included in the rent. Let me say that. And the individual says, "That's okay. I don't really need water. I can go down to the local gas station and get what I need." You know, that's a situation where yes, the individual can make a choice, but we would also want to see or need to see that support team working with the individual about, no, that's because that could be a health and safety thing, right? We can all understand how that would be a health and safety concern. So we would just look to the team working with that individual to get some sort of resolution through the landlord, or, you know, if it's a some other issue with repairs or something in a family home. Again, what are we doing to help connect that family to other resources to help with the repairs that need to be made? Heather, anything to add on that?
No, I think that was perfect. So I do have some exciting news. Spencer was able to join us just
That's
now,
great.
so he was able to get in. So Richard, if we could go back, maybe we could spend our last few minutes where he could share information on his IPP.
That would be great. We are so glad you could join us. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Spencer Booth, and thank you so much for being able to join us. Dr. Booth, we cannot hear you if you are speaking. And he says he's been muted.
Oh, no, let me see here.
Okay. Again,
Not
we
sure.
appreciate everyone
Not sure.
hanging in there with us. Dr. Booth?
Great. No longer muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. All right. Sorry about all the troubles there. That was crazy, but figured it out. Okay. Better late than never. All right. My name is Spencer Booth, and I am a psychologist with Booth & Company. And for our IPP project, we are working on helping people find and develop their strengths. And we can go to the next slide. So since I'm on the phone, I don't have control of the slides. I don't know if you guys can forward the slides for me.
So they're going forward for you. So you are now at the benefits of identifying strengths.
Okay. There we go. Yes. So the reason that we identify, okay, I wonder if I'm behind on my, okay. The reason that we're working on identifying and developing strengths is because it can lead to improved self-esteem. Recognizing and celebrating a person's strengths can boost their self-esteem and confidence. This can help them feel more empowered and capable, leading to a more positive outlook on life. It can lead to increased independence by focusing on what a person can do rather than on what they cannot. We can help them develop greater independence. This can foster a greater sense of control over their lives. So we can go to the next slide.
Dr. Booth, you are on the next slide. I think what you're seeing just maybe a little behind.
Got it. Okay. And we can focus on stronger relationships. Focusing on strengths can help build stronger relationships with friends and family. And we can also have greater opportunities. By identifying and nurturing an individual's strengths, we can help them access more opportunities for education, employment, and community involvement. And lastly, we can have an enhanced quality of life. When people are able to utilize their strengths, they can experience a higher quality of life. This may include increased social participation, greater job satisfaction, and improved overall well-being. And we found several different strengths assessments that we found to be effective. And the first is called Values in Action Inventory of Strengths. And this is an online assessment that has 120 questions. It uses a Likert scale for individuals to rate items from 1, which is very much not like me, to 5, very much like me. And it's found to be reliable with diverse populations, including people with disabilities. There's one assessment for people from 13 to 17 years old, and a separate assessment for people 18 years and older. And the report we use finds 5 top strengths and descriptions of each strength. So this example profile has humor, bravery, creativity, zest, and love as the top strengths. And then the profile gives an example of each and gives the person some kind of personality information about what that strength means about them. And on the humor character strength, they give the example that other people might see them as playful, lighthearted, good-natured, and funny. Another strength assessment that we use is the Scale for Positive Character Traits for people with developmental disabilities. And this was developed by Dr. Cooper Woodward in 2009. This is a 26-item questionnaire. It assesses 10 positive traits, which are empathy, optimism, forgiveness, kindness, humor, gratitude, self-efficacy, courage, self-control, and resilience. And this test was actually designed for somebody else to do for the person, but the way we use it is to have the participant to complete it with somebody who knows them well, and they can work on it together. And it works for any age. And there is there is scholarly research that supports the use of this assessment. Another way that we look for strengths is to use a list of 43 strengths with examples. And this, by going through this list, it provides exposure to a variety of strengths. And when we're using this list, we encourage people to pick a strength that they would enjoy working on. And then another tool we use is finding a strength through an unusual event. And what this exercise involves remembering how the participant responded to an unusual event. And the examples include like forgiving somebody who wronged them, helping others during an emergency, sharing lunch with somebody who forgot theirs, and thinking of a creative solution to a problem. The final strength assessment we use is asking a friend to think about what they know about you. Friends and family who know us well can help identify strengths, but sometimes as friends and family, we have blind spots too. We might limit our creative brainstorming to by the daily routines of our life and schedule limitations and so forth. And that's why the unusual event exercise is helpful, because when an unusual event kind of shakes us out of our daily routines and we see things that we haven't seen before. And the next section is about using and developing our strengths. So once we identify a strength, we work on using and developing it. And what we do is we pick 1 or 2 strengths to use and develop. We define how it is shown, where it is used, and who has seen it. And we think about how the strength can be developed. And then we set a goal for today, next week, and for the month to use and develop the strengths. And then after that, once a week, we look at the use and development of the strength. We celebrate successes, we create new goals, and we identify any barriers that came up. And barriers are like, somebody wants to be in a bowling league, but it happens during the time they're supposed to be at the workshop, or they don't have transportation. And occasionally, we have not seen this, but I know that it does come up where people who care about the individual have safety concerns and are worried that this event will either lead to some kind of failure or to personal safety issues. And there we use the exercise, what's important for me and what's important to me, to kind of tease out those issues. Another step we use for using and developing strengths is to seek encouragement. We ask somebody who knows the person well and that they see frequently to encourage them by noticing when they use their strengths. So catching people using their strengths is an important part of that. And this helps supporters encourage the person and develops a strengths mindset. And the long-lasting impact of this strength assessment, the facilitators are trained to look for strengths that the person will enjoy developing. So that is sort of a long-term impact that we've seen, is that we, some of the first couple of strengths assessment we did, people came up with strengths that were sort of their defining strengths of their personality that everybody already saw. And those were like encouraging people, saying hi to people, giving people hugs and so forth. And we realized that when they're going to work on that, that's kind of what they do already. So we wanted to find something new and fun, and that really helps people get more excited about the project. Another benefit of this is it gets everybody into a strengths mindset. What strengths do you have? What else can you do? And again, we overlook weaknesses when people are performing well and focusing on their strengths. Sustainability. So we are revising the assessment to make it easier to use. It's a little wordy and unwieldy. We wanted to put everything in there, and we're recognizing some things that don't need to be in there, confusing just by adding more instructions and so forth. We're going to distribute the assessment to everybody we can think of: case managers, rec therapists, residential providers, so everybody can have access to it. We'll post the assessment on our website for easy download. And DDARS, of course, will have a copy of the assessment to use however they'd like. All right, and that is my presentation. Again, so sorry for all the technical difficulties, and I'm glad we got it figured out at the end there.
All right, thank you, Dr.
right.
Booth. Okay, Holly, can you talk? I feared that
Sure.
maybe I
Yeah,
muted you.
sorry. Yeah, no problem. Yes, thank you, Dr. Booth. And thank you everyone for joining us. We are right at the end here with just a few minutes. So I just want to again thank Dr. Booth and thank SERS for joining us today and providing information on their IPPs. We are again looking at ways where we can respond to your questions that we didn't get to today and get that back to you. But certainly if you have additional questions, you can use the BEADS helpline. And if you have ideas for future webinar topics, that email address is on the screen. Again, we appreciate you sharing an hour of your day. That's a lot of time in a work day. So we appreciate you sharing that time with us and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week as we get ready to say goodbye to October and welcome in the holidays. Thanks so much.